Hellarena. Novel by Ayed Hindi. Part 5. Chapter 19. The Counterattack. On the other side of the Galatians' territory, inside the besieged city of the Milanese, Princess Lion was preparing herself to break through the siege imposed by the Galatians' troops, cross into the caves, and hide with the mutineers until she could sneak into the Galatians' territory and head towards the king's castle. That was the plan the Milanese leadership agreed upon with Ravdan before surrendering and releasing him back to his army. Princess Lion would wait for his signal after being freed from the army's interrogation, and he could subsequently help the princess execute their own goals, destroying King Avauda and ending the bloody war. The signal they agreed upon requires Ravdan to raise his military unit flag near the Valley of the Confined Souls, opposite the mutineers' land, and therefore can be seen from a distance, and subsequently, Princess Lion could move inside the Galatina's territory. She needed more than luck and a well-trained squad to accompany her throughout the journey. The luck would definitely come from the words and blessings she received from Mardak himself, and the squad should be a special one that can fight ruthlessly and relentlessly up until the very end. Princess Lion asked Mardak to give her the soldiers that fight the multiplies of troops fearlessly, and without any mercy, she went with Mardak to the South District upon his instructions, where the half-dead soldiers were still laying sporadically on the empty streets of the city. Mardak stood in the middle of the way towards the hill, and he kneeled on his knees and hit the ground with his both hands. While Princess Lion was watching behind him, the half-dead soldiers started moving slowly, and step by step, they began cleaning their faces and their bodies from the strange fume that was encapsulating them, and then they stood together as one warrior legion, ready for the orders. She was stunned and could not believe what she had just witnessed. Dead soldiers came back to life. They had been literally resurrected from death. The high-ranking officer, the head of the warrior legion, approached the princess, and while she was astounded in fear and overwhelmed with the most dread, he told her, "Princess Lion, we are at your service. Lead us to victory." These words calmed her down, and she replied, "I shall brave soldiers." Then she turned towards Mardak and asked again, "Your Holiness, we need weapons. We cannot fight without them." Mardak pointed to her and towards the soldiers to follow him as he started mounting the hill. Then he pointed towards the valley on the other side, and they went there upon his signals, and they could find a big stash of weapons lying there. The legion began immediately arming themselves with the much-needed new weapons. Mardak started descending the steep hill towards the Valley of the Souls. Everyone was following him towards that holy place. The place was fully darkened until suddenly the bright angels descended upon the advanced troops and lit the way for them. The whole valley was immersed in an immaculate silver light as they were cutting through the hard terrain. Princess Lion was following the holder of the eternal keys, Mardak, in fear and awe, and they were followed by the dedicated true warriors. They crossed the holy valley and reached the bridge that led towards the caves of the mutineers. Mardak stood and pointed for them to proceed with their journey as his mission had come to an end. Princess Lion kneeled and expressed her gratitude. "Your Holiness, your blessings I need, your help and protection I will always seek and request, be always with us." He put his hands on her shoulders, nodded his head as a positive gesture to her, and then pointed again towards the bridge. Princess Lion started crossing that bridge, followed by her revived brave soldiers. She called on the lead officer, who was following her closely. "Your Highness," answered the soldier. "What is your name?" asked Princess Lion. "Javeir, Your Highness," replied to the soldier. "Very well, Javeir. After we cross the bridge, we will encounter the mutineers who are guarding the bridge's gate. They know me, but they are not expecting any visitors from this side of the bridge. It would be a complete surprise for them the moment we met them. We must handle the matter delicately. They are not our enemies, and furthermore, I need them because their help will enable us crossing into the Galatians' land. and I need you to pass those instructions on to the rest of your brave soldiers and act accordingly." "Yes, your highness," answered Javert. The legion continued their long crossing over the bridge until they reached the other end, where the mutineers stood up guarding the gates. Javert went in front of Princess Lion, and the other soldiers surrounded her for protection as they advanced through that gate. The mutineers knew who she was and let them pass through, to their complete surprise and total amazement to see anyone crossing the Holy Valley and the bridge consequently. Surely for them, it was the first time ever such an event would occur in their memory. They let them pass towards the great cave where Janice, the leader of the mutineers, and her guards were waiting, and she rushed on, welcoming Princess Lion with a respected bend and a big smile on her face. "Princess Lion, finally you made it through the impassable. That was brave and heroic of you and your formidable soldiers. I am certain you have the Blue Plusive's own blessing and mercy. Our soldiers saw the event in disbelief as you were crossing the bridge. And as soon as they informed me, I must tell you, I could not believe it until I saw you myself. The Blue Plusive blessed you. Welcome to our kingdom." "Blessed Almighty Blue, Plusive, and bless you, Janice. We will stay for a short period of time at your place before we eventually depart towards the Galatians' kingdom. I am counting on your hospitality for this time, and I hope we are not disturbing your people," said Princess Lion. "You and your brave soldiers are most welcome. We will prepare a place that suits your highness, Princess Lion. Please do proceed into our great kingdom," answered Janice. They walked hand in hand into the great cave, followed by the soldiers and the mutineers all together. Chapter 20. The Dungeons. King Avauda concluded his prayers in front of the royal altar and then went back towards his throne, surrounded by his own guards. Then, Marketh went out and called for Princess Kara and her man, Ravdan, to be present to the king, followed by General Zingi. The group stood in front of the king, muted out of words and awe, while Marketh positioned himself near Ravdan. The king spoke to Princess Kara. "You defied my orders, daughter, and you have severely abused your position. You embarrassed me when you went and released your husband in this unacceptable manner. Your man is a disciplined soldier, and he has to obey any order he receives. He should have refused to comply with your wishes and never walked out of that military headquarters without my permission. This is disobedience and disloyalty." "Father, Ravdan had always obeyed all of your previous orders, and he put his own life in danger for the sake of your own orders, and for today, he has obeyed my own orders. It is my plight for the reason that I love him and I can't live without him. I could not imagine, after all what he have endured into the captivity inside that besieged city, to be confined and treated here as traitor and not as a hero. Father, I wish you forgive my outraged emotions that blinded my wisdom and made me rush to hold him in my arms. I wish you allow him to leave back home with me and extend your forgiveness. After all what he have done and the pain he had suffered, he might have your mercy and to be fairly acquitted by your justice." Princess Kara responded. "Ravdan," said the king, "you have something you need to return to me." After a bit of hesitation, Ravdan replied to the king. "Your Majesty, after I have been captured by the overwhelming Malani soldiers that surrounded and took us by surprise, I hid the precious amulet in a secret covert place, hence no one would be able to find it and take it away from me. I am sorry, Your Majesty. I let you down, and I could not achieve my goals and failed to fulfill my assignments you have trusted me to accomplish." The king was carefully listening to Ravdan's explanations, and then he spoke to him. "Are you sure you did not hand the amulet over to the infidel Barkle? You thought I was not aware of what was happening inside the Malanese land between you and them? I commissioned the military officers at first on questioning you, and I thought to myself, you maybe would come clean and confess for all the contrived and hideous plans you and your fellow traitors were brewing and preparing against me. You have betrayed me, you've betrayed your country, and most importantly, you have betrayed my daughter. She is standing there listening and not believing what she is hearing. What would you say to defend yourself?" You were under pressure? Did they torture you? No. They treated you like you were absolutely one of them. They thought you were something important, and you believed that. You believed that you could replace me and become the future king, sitting on the throne next to your beloved Princess Lion. You were nothing but an ordinary officer brought by Marketh to the special forces and happened to be admired by my credulous and gullible daughter. Nevertheless, that was your unique chance of using her to your advantage and climbing high, higher than your ability to see what lay beneath you. However, now there is no way back and nowhere to run when you are confounded at the top, only by rolling. And that is exactly what will happen to your head. You may wish to learn how I know about all of these things. Though, you will be amazed at what people can do and the extent to which they can humiliate themselves. When they lose everything they had before, some of them may wish to die. Those are the brave ones. Yet the others are too greedy to depart their own delusions of keeping and retaining what is already gone for good. That is exactly the case of the big rat, Prince Cadorf, who would endeavor everything to remove you from Princess Lion's heart and sight. Shame he is still breathing when he should have been among the rotten dead, but he proved his aptness and worthiness to grant living yet another day. And don't you worry about Kara. If you thought you could hurt her feelings, what she has done today was a smart move to cover her own hidden deep secrets. She was using you all the time to achieve what she has always wanted. She had never loved you, just to dispel the myth. In fact, she is in love with the guy standing next to you, General Zingy, but she could never reveal that secret to anyone. Listen, daughter, you can't replace me. Neither you nor anyone lives on this planet. This person is yet to be born. This is the Red Minus's will. Then King Avauda shouted towards his guards. Guards, take him down to the dungeons. The royal guards encircled Ravdan tightly and grabbed his hands and his head. And you, Princess Kara, you may leave to your place and stay in there and never depart your home without my permission, understood? Princess Kara replied angrily. No, my lord, I don't believe any of the words of what you have just said. You are absolutely wrong to accuse me in that way. I have no hidden secrets, and I loved no one else other than my beloved husband, Ravdan. You might not be able to understand what love is because you have never encountered real love in your whole life. Your Majesty, you are completely suspicious of everything around you, and even at times you might suspect your own wits and sound judgment. Your suspicious thoughts affect your wisdom as you were hurried to believe a betrayer like Prince Cadorf, who had venomously been able to plant the seeds of hatred and wedge the enmity between us, and you did not believe me or even Ravdan. I am made of your own blood and flesh, but now please believe me, I would never leave Ravdan alone receiving your unjust and wrongful judgment, and I would rather instead die with him in that horrifying dungeon. On the other hand, Ravdan was totally immersed in his own thoughts, while his wife was defending him, as he was wondering why would Prince Cadorf do such a thing and inform about the secret of the amulet and also about the meetings with Barkle? What would he be achieving? He, himself, is in a dire situation, and his own end is soon to be reaped at the hands of the same king he is cooperating with. Could he be getting a good deal with the Red Minus? Would he wish to eliminate me from life to be Princess Lion's only future man and husband and eventually the king? How dare he desire to replace me in her heart and in my own place on the future throne? He is truly a miserable and despicable failed person, and he won't, by any vile means, achieve anything except the decease of the rest of him and of his own people at the hands of that ruthless king. Cadorf is a complete fool to bargain with the uncompromising, insatiable tyrant. Though my end is near, and I regret not being able to witness Prince Cadorf's own demise. Nonetheless, it's my lost call forever. That was the last word playing on his mind until he heard the king's orders. Your Majesty, do you want me to take both? Marketh asked meekly the furious and displeasured King Avauda, who in his turn answered him firmly. Lock the both of them down in the dungeons. Hurry, but leave me General Zingy. He is my unborn brother. The guards took Ravdan and Kara and dragged them down into the darkened, separated, and isolated cells underneath the castle, hopelessly waiting for their final verdict by the king of all kings on that planet. General Zingy was still in a state of shock, fear, maybe joy, and definitely sadness to watch and witness what just occurred in front of his own eyes. All of these contrasting and variable feelings and emotions captured him and overwhelmed his mind in these past moments that can summarize life under such a brutal and cruel king. And nothing would ever restrain or refrain that king from annihilating anything that stands in his own way. He thought he wouldn't be taken by the soft tone the king had spoken to him, as he knew he would be the next to lose his head if something went horribly wrong. Your Majesty, I wish you were not too harsh on Princess Kara and her man, Ravdan. I mean, are you sure of the information you received from Prince Kadorf? He is desperate, and his fears and hopelessness can create many illusions. If he is wrong, it would be a great injustice for your subjects, especially for Princess Kara. Let your mercy precede your punishment, Your Majesty. General Zingy, I appreciate your worries, and I will not punish them severely until I make sure of the validity of the information that I received from Prince Kadorf. But the unforgiving thing is that she stood unashamedly and brazenly against me. This woman was defending her man, the betrayer and the inferior, and not standing beside me and supporting my cause. Instead, if she ever understood my judgment, I would have been even more lenient towards her sickening man. However, after what she has done in front of you and the other guards, my heart has been hardened even more against her. Your Majesty, she is after all your only daughter, and don't blame her, for she bears your audacious and heroic spirits. She is relentless and inexorable in defending her man, like you're proceeding in defending our nation. Your Majesty, I hope you can consider her plight and predicament. She is broken-hearted from both of you and her man. She is definitely not deserving of all that has been imposed upon her. Princess Kara will spend time down there reflecting upon her pertness and insolence in my royal presence. She needs to understand that I am the ultimate king here, the almighty king of all this planet, and she would be nothing without me. To be a king, all you need is luck. To be a great king like me, you don't need only luck but also determination, ingenuity, and uncompromising virtues rather to achieve boundless aspirations. When the time is right, I will consider her position, but for now, I hope she is enjoying her confinement. You may dismiss her for now, General Zingy. The general left the king sitting at his throne in the royal chamber in an obvious tense and restive state of mind. Zingy would think to himself that he tried his best efforts to relieve Princess Kara from her father's heinous incarceration. However, at the same time, he did it without exerting much unneeded pressure upon the unpredicted cruel king. Chapter 21. Reflections. The prisoners, Ravdan and Kara, were led by the guards down towards the dungeons, which lay deep underneath the castle. The castle itself was built on huge rocks that emerged from the marvelous lake. It was the greatest lake ever created on the planet. The water and the lava intertwined but never mixed, moving in roaring drafts, the lava pouring from the great river Kosh into the lake after passing through the valley of the confined souls. Yet, the calm red and blue water prevailed over each half of the lake and restrained the raging lava vortexes that surrounded the great rock from all sides. The dungeons were built purposely to keep the prisoners in close proximity to that raging lava with its raucous noises and emerging gases. To be that close, it is a continuous mental torture to the prisoners, and the poisonous gases that cross through the tilted openings cause constantly a slow weakening of the body and the mind and lead to inescapable death gradually after spending enough time inside certain cells within the dungeons. No one ever could have survived the grilling ambience inside this prison, and no one ever emerged out sane or not bruised in his mind. Princess Kara was inundated and afflicted with a blend of deep sadness and furious anger. She was immersed and absorbed in seas of doubts, and the suspicious were dominating the totality of her mind. Down and alone in her dim, dark, empty cell, with only a small tilted opening perched high upon the solid stone wall, packing the place with the loud noise of the lave uproar. That noise was heavily penetrating inside the cell. She began mumbling within herself. What if Prince Kadorf was right? And what if my father was telling the truth about what he knew for sure and not rumors, or just a hideous wedge, entailed to divide and separate us? Is Ravden really a betrayer and a deceiver? Could it be that she has been used by him in all the past time as an absolute gullible toy that he can throw away when he achieves his own aims? Am I not a good lover and wife enough for him? I have done my best for Ravden as a wife. But my father has always been suspicious, and he lately is getting even worse on his mind, particularly after Ravden's departure towards Malani's land. And even then, he started believing any stupid rumors circled around him. I loved him with all my heart. I really did, and still to that very moment, however, was I blind not to see and feel what were his real intentions? No, my love is pure and real. I should have never doubted him. Was I wrong to expect betrayal from him? I am not selfish like my father. I have lost my mother because of his self-interest and deception. There was emptiness left in my heart. Nevertheless, I had never expected Ravden to fill it. He is quite different for sure. Though, would I end up like my mother? Maybe my mother was weak and could not defend herself against all that wickedness surrounding and strangling her. Yet even if she did fight back and counter the malicious forces, would that help her cause? Would she have won her life back? I don't know anything right now. It is confusing, and that howling sound is piercing deeply in my ears and in my shattered mind. That noise will never stop, and it will never end. Oh, Almighty! I wish I could break through those stony dull walls and hold my beloved Ravden in my arms and end together this misery, no matter what they do or say. He is my solace and my relief. I can't imagine myself without him, and I am confident that I will forgive him right or wrong, blessed or condemned. My love is true, and it's only for my man, Ravden. Why doesn't my father understand how I feel? Why can't he forgive that I am not like him and that I will never be a pitiless and merciless person? Nevertheless, I am not weak. I will never run away from the wicked. I will not do what my mother failed to do. I will gather the courage left in me and face my fate and my judgment, even if I am left alone. How bitter it will be imposed upon me, Almighty. You have left me alone here and allowed the wicked to dominate everywhere around me. You are wise and merciful. That is why I don't understand my predicament. You are made of love. However, wickedness and hate have primed me. I've been left here alone by everyone close to me, the bright, the deceased, and the confined. Then suddenly, a knocking sound on the steel door interrupted the intense, conflicting, and sorrowful contemplations of Princess Kara inside her solitary confinement, and she heard a dim voice passing through from the outside. Princess Kara, I beg you to tell me if you are all right. I am your faithful servant, Garov. I could not be certain you were locked in this cell. Please answer me. I came here to be close to you, regardless of the risk of losing my life. But it seems nothing is worth living for anymore. How dare that cruel heart imprisons his own flesh and blood? Are you listening to me, my dear princess? Yes, Garov, I can hear your voice. She answered him in a dim, sad voice from behind the sealed prison door. My only true love, believe me, I will do anything for you. Princess of my broken heart, please forgive my rattled voice. It is choking me when I call your blessed name. I never felt like this in my entire life, and my soul is pushing me so dearly to break down the barrier that stands between us. I wish they would let me in to serve you and share the air you breathe. I grew up with you through all of my life, and now my eyes can't even enjoy your beautiful face that I used to adore every day. I feel hopeless and miserable without you, my true saver angel. Go back to your place, Garov. You, little Pete, are deepening my endless sadness even more. My soul won't forget your truthful love. Go now, please. She dropped oodles of bitter tears upon her hard-dried, pale cheeks. My princess, we will meet again. I assure you, never lose faith. The sparkles of hope are much clearer at the darkest times. You would never see them in lucent light. At the end, Garov left the dungeons, but he was determined to do anything to secure the release of Princess Kara from her terrible confinement. He knew deep down that he couldn't recall or witness anyone having survived the dungeon's predicament after long incarceration, and he expected himself to act fast or he would never see her again alive. It was the result that he most dreaded. Chapter 22. Time for change. Most of the Galatians people enjoyed and at the same time celebrated the complete and decisive victories that were brought to them by their own brave and scarifying army soldiers under the leadership of the mighty King Avauda, who knew the true nature that promoted his people's ebullient thirst, and he knew how to bind them always behind his control, and that was the insatiable greed for more gains. The Galatians endured throughout the vicious military campaign against the Malanies. However, King Avauda was keen on every land that was occupied by his soldiers from the enemy to be allotted and handed over equally to his faithful people as a sign and act of gratitude towards his supporters and providers of war, much-needed soldiers and subsistence. They kept on providing both essential things for the army in return for more land acquisitions and more resources received. It was a very convenient arrangement that satisfied both parties as long as the victories kept on coming and more of the good news. But this convenient and precarious deal had stumbled upon the inevitable. Acquiring more land needs more hands to work on it. Many of the workers were either in the army busy fighting or injured, and subsequently couldn't do much for that vast, essential land. The women couldn't contribute even much for those efforts. Their duty, as has been prescribed by the king, is to bring more children and replenish the army with the needed soldiers to continue the sacred campaign headed by the mighty king. On the other hand, differences erupted between the heads of the Galatians clans on which land they should receive and acquire. There is a natural variety that separates the different qualities of the lands they were sharing after deposing the rightful previous estate owners, and as always expected, greed won't stop at the point of acquiring just the land. It has to be fruitful and, for sure, great in size. Those emerged fictions ensued estate infighting between the clans and precipitated a great division among the Galatians people. Consequentially, the developing situation created a dilemma and an impasse for the king as he needed to settle the fractions between his greedy people, and at the same time, he desired to concentrate on his campaign to fulfill his ultimate ambitions, to be crowned the truthful and the only emperor of the whole planet. Nevertheless, with his continued expansion and extending his sweep of land dominance, coupled with less subsistence arriving and ever dwindling due to a lack of working hands and fractional fighting among his people, the king's campaign started waning, staggering, and deep cracks emerged among the fighting legions on the justifying purpose of the campaign itself. If they continued on the same pace, the whole of the Malinese population and many of their soldiers would suffer as expected as an inevitable outcome of the final conflict of the besieged city of the Malinese, and the common sense was instead of eliminating them totally. An opinion among the discontented groups aroused and emanated a prospect that the surrounded people left in the besieged city can be rather saved as an asset to be used and employed, or even enslaved, to work on the land, which the Galatians had already acquired and controlled. By means of spreading them all over the planet, there would be a little chance of them ever thinking of regrouping and gathering again and form any faint challenge to the upcoming vast Holy Empire. The slaves would be kept in controlled camps, separating them from the true population of the Galatians. They would be even more concerned with their own existence and endure the harsh conditions imposed on them rather than resisting the mighty Galatians. Those views were presented by the council of wise leaders to the mighty king of Auda, who declined completely to accept such a venture. Instead, the king insisted on his own brutal plans of action. No prisoners of war, all should be disposed of and wiped out totally from the planet. He was more concerned with achieving the ultimate victory on his own terms and stamping out all the other contenders. For Avauda, there should be no way back from the complete annihilation of his adversaries. That is the only meaning for true victory that the king has in his suspicious mind. Some of the Galatians people started wondering what the advantage of having all of the planet at their disposal is, yet they cannot offer to use it, and what if their king can't stop even after eliminating the Malanies? He is used to acquiring power and pride by winning wars and gaining victories. He never used to live in peace and tranquility. Would he then turn on his people for the reason that there are no others left to kill or eliminate? Would he ever want to be the only creature that is left alive on the planet? Is it his dream to be immortal and alone in that empty, hollowed paradise? What would he be ruling then? He needs people to rule and command. The Galatians people begin to question the sanity and wisdom of their king, and his existence is of any value for them anymore. There were voices demanding the return of their beloved soldiers to enjoy their achievements and relish their accomplishments. And as these demands returned to a vain and deafened ears from the vicious king, there has to be an action to remove and eradicate that insane, brutal king. These suggestions of the minority of the Galatians people played very well with the ambitious army generals, like General Zingi, and with the in-waiting Princess Kara inside the kingdom hierarchy. Though stagnation and delaying would be the worst options at hand for the conspirators, and for whom to replace the king is another matter of division among them, but then again, would it really matter for them if the cause is agreed upon and was taken unanimously and universally? By all means, yes, on the account that it was approved out of greed and cupidity and not for the sake of peace and compassion for the people. Long after years of continuous bloody, ferocious wars, those virtues had been disappearing from everyone's heart. Even their souls had been emptied except from greed and desire for even more. They all became King of Vauda alike, in different masks, bodies, and, in another name, crowded inside the hollow planet. Chapter 23. The Plot. Out of desperation and dread that the worst is yet to come from that insane King of Vauda, Garov left out the King Castle in haste and went out to the big city, Randon, the capital of the Galatina's kingdom, in the hope he would be able to speak with the wise men who might help him in the sake of releasing Princess Kara out of her predicament. The trip took him less than an hour to reach the city, and by then, he had approached the cloister where the council is located just outside the city suburb. Despite his visual disguise, he had been watched closely and followed by civilian-dressed soldiers who stopped him minutes before entering the cloister, arrested him, and then led him back towards the military headquarters, where they took him to the General Zingi office, who received him with apparent anger and severe reproof. "What are you trying to do, Garov? Did you lose your mind?" "Sir, there is no hiding. I am desperate, and I can't believe what came into Princess Kara. She is so sweaty and tender, and now her fate is just too horrifying to think about. Please help her, sir. I know you admire her, and you still have deep admiration for her." "I spoke with the king, and his majesty promised to reconsider her fate. Nevertheless, you know for sure, Garov, I can't do anything for her on my own. If he decided the worst was in his mind, then that is that," retorted General Zingi. "You are not on your own. I'm with you, sir. Just order me, and I am at your disposal. I will do anything to save her life. I'm quite sure you have plans, and that explains why your soldiers were following me all the way to the monastery cloister. I'm not a coward, as the king might think about me, or maybe even everyone else who heard about my work at the castle. However, believe me, I'm ready to sacrifice myself to save Princess Kara's life. We need you well inside the castle and very close to him, if you understand what I mean. I gave the orders to my soldiers to prevent you from doing any stupid thing that can jeopardize and complicate our plans even more, and also, your position in the castle could be helpful for us. Imagine what would happen to you if they went to the king and asked him to release his daughter upon your request, and he would know that you were the informer of the secrets inside the castle. We would lose you for good. Your position in there is an important part of our plan. So calm yourself down and set, and let me tell you what is next for you," answered General Zingi. Garov, the servant, sat down, listening to General Zingi. "We have to move swiftly but also in scrupulous and carefully planned steps ahead in order to nail our target. We must get rid of his closed ring of protection, and that is, his faithful dog and right hand. You know who I mean, Marketh. However, there are still other things to consider. Tell me, Garov, what you know about his habits, his secret escapes or hideouts, or any other things about which I am not aware. You know, we could try to catch him. Nonetheless, he could slip easily away, but again, he is not leaving the castle recently as often, and we must enter the castle to stop his wickedness. So, Garov, do you have anything you wish to inform me about his secrets? The general requested. Not much, I am afraid, sir. I am only allowed to a few places inside the vast castle. Even when I am with him, there is always a guard stand at the door. He is very suspicious about everything, but I must confess about something. I know a secret passage that I used to descend down to the dungeons where Princess Kara and her man are kept locked, and I had sneaked in behind the guards, obviously unnoticed, but I could not open the steel door attached to her cell, though I tried. It was very well fixed and sealed. But this secret passage I discovered accidentally when I was ordered to clean the small chapel behind the altar in the royal chamber. There is other passage connected, but I haven't tried it yet, and I don't know where it leads to. Garov answered and continued. I don't know more than this information, but he always appears to us suddenly, like a ghost from nowhere, as we were sitting sometimes at the service hall beside the royal chamber. It is a very big building and has many routes and corridors, leading to rooms mostly empty and hardly ever being occupied. The castle is only for the king himself, you know, General. We have another one inside the castle who is also helping us. I won't tell you who he is, but when we decide to move, he will tell you what to do, and you need to hear from him a code so you know he is among us. He will call you Garov the Clown. Keep the secret, and you will survive. General Zingy assured Garov. But General, tell me, what will happen to the princess? How will you save her? And what will happen if anything bad happens to everyone? Garov asked. I hope for the good news. Anyway, it could be a blessing that she is in prison now. No one can predict what will happen if anything goes wrong and the mobs and angry people start to attack anything that belongs to the king, including his daughter, Princess Kara. The general answered. What do you mean by angry people? I didn't know that the people hated the king so much that they wanted to attack him and his family. Everyone I know praised him for his achievements and sound victories. Garov replied. That is always the usual response from hypocritical people under tyrants like Avauda. Be brave, Garov, and proceed now to your place inside the castle and keep everything you learned within your heart. Don't share anything with anyone, even in your dreams. Ordered General Zingy. Chapter 24. Love and Sorrow. On the other side of the planet, far from Randon City and away from the Rock Castle, Princess Lion was remaining among the mutineers, with her guards, in the great cave, and waiting for Ravdan's signal to start attacking the king's castle. After long waiting, Princess Lion began feeling uneasy, and she expressed her worries while she was at the bank, sitting next to Jans, the leader of the mutineers. It's been many days and I didn't hear a thing from Ravdan. What do you think, Janice? He told me that he will send one of his men to here after lifting the flag, and then they will guide us towards the castle. Would it be a bad fortune descended upon them? I have sent my informant to sniff in around Randon City for any updates, and maybe he will bring us what we are waiting for. The mutineers have access to the city, but again, why are you so worried? Are you tired and weary of this place? Or it might be our hospitality. Please, don't you misunderstand me, Janice. Your companion is the best I have had since I lost my whole family. However, you know why I'm here and what our prime purpose is. Don't worry then. I share your purpose as well, and if nothing turns up from Ravdan, then we will make our own arrangements, and our fighters will lead you towards the king's castle. Janice expressed her assurances to Princess Lion. Do you mean you are ready to embark on such a perilous mission? There is no turning back once we reach out there, exclaimed Princess Lion. That is for sure, Princess Lion. Our fate lays at the same pool, where King Avauda wishes to ignite and burn all in together. If he manages to accomplish the distraction of the besieged city, our turn will be next inevitably. We must prepare ourselves for that moment. Together, victory is within reach and imaginable. No matter how organized and powerful they are, we have many informers inside their city and around it, and they should know what is happening in there, as I mentioned before. I have instructed one of my guards to bring me the latest updates from there, and hopefully it won't be long. Janice explained her position to Princess Lion. Not so long passed as Janice predicted. One of her assistants came back from the city and spoke to her. Then, she went on to tell Princess Lion about the grievous news. I must tell you, the officer you relied on, Ravdan, has been imprisoned alongside his wife, Princess Kara, at the castle dungeons, and as you anticipated bad fortune, he has been accused of treason. My assistant thinks he will lose his life very soon and won't be able to help you. I have an inkling that the whole thing was set up and masterminded by Prince Kadorf. He was very jealous of watching Ravdan being very close to me. Nevertheless, he might have forgotten that Ravdan, the one who saved my life twice. The first when the Galatians' army surrounded our palace at Hadatapolis city, captured all my family and our soldiers, and Ravdan let me slip and run away from the prison, captured all my family and our soldiers, and Ravdan let me slip and run away from the prison. They held us into. His last mission was sent by King Avauda exactly to eliminate our leadership at the temple ceremony. But again, he deserted to our side. Without him, I wouldn't be here or anywhere at all. I must help him in his plight, but I don't know how. Princess Lion uttered her words nervously. Therefore, you think, Princess Lion, that Prince Kadorf had spelled out everything and risked all of his people's fate and everyone's lives inside the besieged city only because of the love? You must be very lucky, Princess. You have two formidable contenders fighting ferociously over your heart. The sad thing is to think about. It's at the expense of the whole stifling Malinese nation. I wish Prince Kadorf didn't mention that you're being here among us. Otherwise, we will see Galatians' army on our front gates. Janice commented and continued. Nonetheless, practically, you still can't do anything for Ravdan's release. Even if you try, he is in the castle's dungeons. There is no way to release him out of there without conquering and occupying the castle itself, and at that stage, you don't really need him anymore, only maybe to pay back your debt towards him, or you may need him only for the reason of love. Princess Lion was red-faced when she responded to Jana's sarcastic comments. I absolutely appreciate what he has done for me. However, we are in a surviving game of life. The odds are mostly against us, and we should not forget his wife, Princess Kara. She is in prison because of him. She had defended her man, of course according to your trusted informer, and she is scarifying her own life for the sake of love and loyalty to her husband Ravdan. I would never imagine myself hurting this young woman by any means. We should resort our efforts to help them both out of their difficulty. Then, here is the plan. We don't have spare time. Princess Lion, we must sneak through the military lines, although we should avoid the military barracks along the road and around the craters. If you want to attain the castle, Princess Lion, are you ready? Janice requested. Yes, Janice, we are ever ready. And then Princess Lion called on her assistant. Javert, call on the guards to get ready. We are moving towards the castle. Yes, Your Highness, answered Javert. Then Princess Lion informed Janice. I shall send a signal to my people, who are waiting impatiently to hear back from me. I need to tell them that our plans have changed now, and I must go there with you. We had agreed before I left the besieged city that in case something goes wrong with Ravdan and I don't receive any signal from him, I will continue on my own. Certainly, before you agreed to join us in our noble mission, I will throw an arrow from the bridge. This will signal that Plan B of our mission is taking effect on the ground. She took her bow, smeared the arrow with a mixture of oil and phosphor, put it on fire, and then released the arrow high into the empty space, followed by another one. They left the great cave gates and marched on towards the river Kosh. There were many fighters from both sides, walking alongside the river's bank. Then they moved from the lush meadows toward the open evergreen marshland that led after a short walk towards a very wide, dense forest and shrubs. Then, through a narrow route, they went in and started crossing the Bugash forest, walking on foliage and slithering between the trees and the low branches. They reached a small wooden building hidden between the shrubs after a long hiking day. This way is a longer route towards the castle. However, it is much safer and quite covert from the Galatians' army and their intelligence. We will rest here inside this shelter, and then we will resume our task later. Janice told her accompanied Princess Lion, in their own way towards King Evauda's castle. End of Part 5.